Phobia Game Studio invites us to play the villain in this story. I'm not gonna lie, it feels great. My name is Catalina. Welcome to the video review of Carrion. We are all familiar with the typical horror game setting. The main character needs to find the way out of the maze-like building while being pursued by a horrible monster. But what happens when it is the other way around? What would happen if we were to become that horrific monster? This is Carrion's main premise, brought to us by Phobia Game Studio. I can assure you that being the bad guy in this story certainly pays off. I've always been interested in video games featuring an unusual character. The Ooze from Mega Drive comes to mind, where we controlled a mutating puddle that flowed throughout the levels. Or more recently, if 2015 can be considered recently, Mushroom 11, a super interesting platform-based game in which our main character was a mass of mushrooms that could alter its shape to navigate each stage. Now, joining this club of non-generic alternative protagonists is Carrion, a mass of flesh and tentacles and way too many eyes and teeth, who escapes the container where she was trapped in a deep underground lab. It's time for revenge! Carrion is a reverse horror game, where we get to be the horrible monster that must take out humans. Our amorphous mass is much more agile than expected and can move in many different directions using its tentacles. Controlling this beast feels a bit odd at first, but in a matter of minutes, we're already enjoying the flow of this unusual being. We can also use our tentacles to grab objects, especially screens and boxes, and throw them out of our way. Also in the menu, catching those humans and devouring them to recover our lost biomass. The purpose of the game is escaping the facility where we're trapped. This, of course, will not be easy. The place is a true labyrinth, filled with hallways and sub-areas, and as we move forward, we'll encounter more resistance from the pathetic humans along the way. People loading their guns, soldiers with machine guns, security drones, and even a few terrifying, slow-moving mechs, with enough firepower to leave our beloved monster looking like ground beef on the clearance rack. We'll learn the hard way that frontal attacks are often a bad idea, and so we must try to learn to identify alternative paths, ventilation ducts, and other nooks to hide until we can be back on the offensive. Of course, our basic skills will not be enough to overcome all the obstacles that will stand in our road towards freedom. And so our little creature will gain new powers from other containers we'll find lying around. First of all, our monster may increase its biomass up to 3 times. This does not only boost our overall energy, but also our size. If we are hurt badly, we will downgrade to the previous biomass level. But if we feed ourselves well enough, we'll move on to the next level. We'll also find a few crannies to deposit part of our biomass to create checkpoints that will help us recover our health and also allow us to save our game. All of the above is certainly important, especially since our powers depend on the level of biomass we have available when using them. During level 1, we can catch our prey with our net or activate levers from a distance. But in level 2, we'll replace this skill with the power to attack with our whole body. In level 3, we'll be shooting flesh and teeth harpoons that will destroy everything in our way. Additionally, in level 1, we'll lay low in camouflage. But in level 2, we gain the ability to create spikes inside our own body. And in level 3, we'll create a protective cortex around us. One of the most interesting skills is our ability to take possession of a human with our tentacles, taking control of the inferior biped to help us in our cause, by activating levers that were previously inaccessible, or if we're lucky enough to own an armed human, dispose of all his cronies just to save us the trouble. Why do we care about all this? Because ultimately, Carrion is a puzzle game. Fact. Our road to freedom will be blocked by all kinds of riddles based on the objects that we find in the stage. The game feels a bit Metroidvania in this style, having to return to previous places to access new areas once we obtain new powers. This being the case, the absence of a map to consult is quite unusual. although the game guides us surprisingly well from beginning to end. Each scene of the game may be considered a puzzle. Those that challenge us to find a blocked door, or those that make us carefully plan our approach to an area full of enemies. In this last option, the tiniest mistake can make everything spin out of control, and very quickly. But lucky for us, there's usually a save point nearby. The game knows how to strike a balance between the different stages, and also stands out for its audiovisual design. The graphic work is astonishing for a production of this genre. The way in which our creature moves never ceases to amaze, and the use of object physics is accurate through and through. The music remains somber, tense, and ever present in the background, giving that extra touch to the experience, and coming to the forefront at just the right time. Sound effects are worth mentioning as well, both for our creature and the nearby victims. I don't really think Carrion has any major problems. Sometimes the physics operate rather curiously with some objects, but this does not affect the progression of the game. The absence of a map is certainly a strange choice. And although you become used to navigating on your own, I surprised myself more than once trying to consult a map that wasn't there. There's also a deliberate absence of target indicators, which is actually a major accomplishment since the game usually highlights the things it wants the player to notice first. Maybe the real weak spot is a relatively short story, which can be completed in a little over 4 hours. But I mention this only because the game is so entertaining you'd want to spend at least a few extra hours playing it. Apart from these details, Carrion passes with flying colors. I think we can all agree that the quality standards of Devolver Digital games are always kept high. We can rest assured that any game that comes out under its wing will at least be highly entertaining, but also extremely original. Carrion is a game worthy of this reputation. It stands out in almost every aspect, giving the player a different, unusual experience. And if its short duration feels like a flaw, well, we must think that brevity is the soul of wit. And Carrion is not only witty, but also very, very good. Carrion gets a score of 9. I took out every human that dared to stand in my way for a little more than 4 hours. Carrion was everything I expected from a game with such an ambitious premise. And although the main idea is fully leveraged to meet our expectations, 1 or 2 additional hours would have been more than welcome. Apart from that, this is one of the most interesting, or at the very least, the most original releases of 2020. Don't miss out. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on notifications. Follow us on social media and visit www.malditosnerds.com to stay up to date with the latest video game news. Thanks for joining us and see you next time.